Hello, and welcome to the Embrace the Darkness podcast, where we explore the night skies, nature and nocturnal calm that you can find in the South Downs International Dark Sky Reserve. I'm Eleanor, your host for the show and the Queen of Darkness. I organise the South Downs National Park's annual Dark Skies Festival, and through this podcast I will be introducing you to some of the people that I've met through my work, each with their own unique relationship with the night sky. So, get comfy, wrap up warm, and come on a journey with me as we embrace the darkness. Hello, and welcome to the Embrace the Darkness podcast. This season, we are focusing on our wonderful nocturnal wildlife. And I'm here on a place called Weavers Down with the lovely Olivia French, who we're going to be chatting to tonight about all sorts of nocturnal wildlife, but a very special bird in particular. But first of all, hello, Olivia.
Hello, Eleanor. Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's a delight to be here with you. Thank you for agreeing to come and talk to us. So, yeah, Olivia. Olivia works for South Downs National Park. She is the Heathlands Reunited project team lead, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But Weavers Down is a Heathland site, and perhaps we can talk about that a bit later. But first of all,
Absolutely.
Olivia, tell us about a memorable experience that you've had outdoors in the darkness.
So I think probably my first memorable experience of being out and really understanding that darkness was growing up in rural Kent, and one night just watching the bats flying around in our back garden and just being mesmerised by the way they moved and the way they came out, just suddenly appeared, and there they were flying around in the garden, and really kind of understanding this whole kind of new world that I hadn't really thought about before as a child. You know, you don't really experience the night a huge amount, or I didn't anyway, and it was kind of opened up this whole new universe to me, that there are all these nocturnal species out there making the most of the nighttime.
Living in the darkness, so that sort of that nocturnal wildlife having a habitat, and all these different creatures that you don't see during the day.
No, exactly. There's a whole other world out there.
Mysterious creatures who fly at night.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
So,
yeah. Oh gosh, that sounds like a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and since then I've spent a lot of time out in the darkness. I enjoy trail running, and I particularly enjoy going out at night because it's a whole different experience. You can kind of see somewhere in the day, and then if you go out in the dark, it's a whole nother level. And I enjoy sea swimming, and I enjoy doing dips in the moonlight, which is quite something. Watching the moon rise over the sea down in Littlehampton's, quite incredible. It's a lovely experience. Everyone should try it at least once.
So getting out on the sea at night.
Yes.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, so we're here on Weavers Down, and you work for a project called Heathlands Reunited. So just tell us a bit about that project and maybe a bit about Heathlands.
Lovely. So yes, Heathlands Reunited is a project which has evolved over time. So it started as a project across the national park, trying to reconnect and recreate some of our heathland habitats. So across the south of England, we've lost about 85% of our lowland heath habitat. And that's only happened in the past few hundred years. So heathlands are actually a man-made habitat created several thousand years ago at the end of the Stone Age, really, as people started to settle and live a slightly less nomadic lifestyle, and they started to kind of build basic farms and graze livestock. And the heathland habitat is a very special and unique soil makeup. which isn't very nutrient rich. As a result, that means that it's not very good for growing crops. So people back then would graze their livestock on it instead. And that in itself created the habitats. So we have these open landscapes which are grazed, which have heather, kind of low-lying vegetation which enjoys the kind of low nutrient soil. But over time we've lost a lot of that due to the fact that people don't graze as much anymore, people don't use materials from the heaths, and we have a lot of invasive species like rhododendron that shade out the heather, and once it's lost it's very difficult to kind of get it back to a good standard. So the project's all about trying to reconnect the small bits of heath that we have. So about 1% of the South Downs National Park is heathland, and it's home to some very specialist creatures, so particularly reptiles and amphibians, but also some of our special bird species and all sorts of lovely invertebrates that like to burrow into the sandy soils that we find on our heaths.
Fabulous. So we've got this really interesting human-created habitat from thousands of years ago. So a lot of cultural heritage.
Absolutely.
Or part of our cultural heritage. But then there are these specialist wildlife species.
Yeah, so it's a lovely story of how humans and wildlife cohabit and coexist. And nowadays, so now the project has evolved slightly and our focus is now on what's called the Weald and Heath Special Protection Area. So that's an area where we find more than 1% of the entire UK population of Dartford warblers, woodlark and nightjars. So those are 3 birds that nest on or near to the ground, and our project is all about kind of protecting that habitat for them, educating people on what's out there because they might not always see them, and looking after them basically.
Yeah, fantastic. So we are here hoping to encounter one of those bird species. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. So we're here tonight to experience the nightjar.
The nightjar. So, tell us a bit about the nightjar. If someone hasn't come across a nightjar before, what is it like?
Nightjar is a really mysterious and wonderful bird. So they are crepuscular.
Oh, I was hoping you'd use that word. I love that word.
Which is a very fancy word for describing the fact that they come out at dawn and dusk. So they're not nocturnal, but they rely on a lot of nocturnal species, lots of moths and insects that fly at night as a food source. So during the day you would have absolutely no idea that they are here. So they nest on the ground in the heather, and they're about the size of a kestrel, I would say. They overwinter in southern Africa. So they spend the winter months there, and then they make that journey every year, thousands of miles, to come and nest on our heathlands in the south of England. Not entirely sure why, but they do. And they get here, they don't even build a nest, they just lay their eggs on the ground, and the females sit on the eggs when they hatch, and they just sit there and don't move. So they look like a piece of bark. They're so well camouflaged to merge in with the heather and the bits of dead wood that you might walk past one and not even notice that it's there. And then come sunset, there's a whole new experience that comes from the nightjars. So they come to life and they do this incredible thing called churring, which hopefully we'll be able to pick up tonight and you'll all be able to experience with us. It's difficult to describe, so I'll leave it to the soundbite. Hopefully we'll hear some, and that way I don't need to embarrass myself by doing an impression of them. So they're an incredible creature. They're kind of tied in again with that kind of human and wildlife story. They're shrouded in mystery, so they've got the nickname goat sucker, and actually caprimulgus, which is their Latin name, that's what it means. So people were quite afraid of them because they thought that they would see them flying around their goats or their livestock at night and think that they were drinking the milk of the goats, when actually what was happening is that they were feeding off the insects that were drawn to the kind of sweet residue of milk. But they were kind of quite feared, and they had lots of kind of folklore stories built around them. So they were quite feared. But nowadays, I mean, they're quite rare, and it's a privilege to be able to see them. So,
goat suckers, gosh, yeah, that's quite a nickname, isn't it?
Yes, it
Come
is.
out on the eats and see the goat suckers.
Come and see the goat suckers.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Wow, yeah. So, we're hoping to see them tonight, and we're on Weaver's Down, which is a Heathland site that you're on fairly regularly, is that correct?
Yeah, so Weaver's Down is a lovely site towards the northern end of the South Downs National Park. So our project kind of focuses on the boundary, the northern boundaries. So Weaver's Down is part of the Wealdon Heath Special Protection Area, and is a beautiful kind of, feels slightly, there's a bit of wilderness here. You can kind of switch off and not realise that the A3 is just over the hill. So it's a lovely site, which is, so the bit that we're on here is owned by the Foley Estate and managed by the Amphibian and Reptile Conservation Trust. So as well as lots of lovely birds and our nightjar that we're listening out for tonight, that it's also managed for reptiles. So we've got some lovely reptiles here. We've got adders, slow worms, sand lizards, common lizards. Not sure about smooth snakes. I think there might be smooth snakes here as well. So yeah,
very
lots
rare,
of very special species.
Yeah,
absolutely
fabulous. And in this area, there's also some nocturnal amphibians as well. Maybe not on this site, but
yeah, not on this site, but very nearby we find natterjack toads. So the natterjack toad is again an incredible little creature. On Woolmer Forest we have the last remaining inland heathland population in the UK. So their habitat has really they've lost a lot of their kind of spread and populations. So there used to be populations on Wimbledon Common, for example.
Oh wow.
But in the past 100 or so years, their habitats changed, climate change has impacted them as well. So they're quite a coastal species. So up in Cumbria, they have populations that are on the coast which are very vulnerable to changes in sea level and climate change. And our small little population on Woolmer Forest are very special. They're an interesting creature. They're quite fussy, so we say they're a bit like the Goldilocks of the amphibian world. They spawn in very shallow ponds, which are called ephemeral, which is again a posh word for temporary, basically. So they're almost like puddles rather than ponds, and the theory behind that is that they spawn in those ponds because there are less predators. In a deeper pond there might be other newts, toads, dragonfly larvae, all out to get the baby toadlets, or the tadpoles. So they choose those shallow ponds because there's less competition, less predators.
Okay.
Yeah. But then that has its challenges as well, because they might dry out.
Yeah.
So
they're clever. It's amazing, isn't it? The sort of the ecosystems and how everything's so sort of interconnected and interrelated, and they all have their niches.
Absolutely.
And so do we. And we've humans
have
created these spaces, and we're now entangled.
Habits, yeah, absolutely. That we're kind of all interconnected. And my connection with nature is very much, I need to be outside for my mental health. I feel so much better as soon as I get out in nature. And so to be able to kind of give back in certain ways is a bit of a privilege, really.
Fabulous. Right, well, I think the sun is kind of setting. We might have to be waiting here for a little bit. So yeah, we'll get back to you when we start hearing the churring. Right, well, so the sun has definitely set now, but the sky is still relatively bright. It's actually about 9:30 at this point. We have heard a brief snatch of churring, so we're hoping that the Nightjar are just warming up and are about to put on a show for us to record and bring to you. But while we're just waiting for all that to happen, Olivia and I have been chatting, and we got to discussing about what is it that we can do to support our nocturnal wildlife, and perhaps particularly the nightjar. What would you say to that, Olivia?
So, as I said before, nightjars nest on the ground, and places like Weaver's Down are really popular with dog walkers, cyclists. Our Heathlands are a great place to come and kind of let off some steam and, you know, have a bit of exercise. But it's important that if we are out and about, especially this time of year in the summer months, that we stick to the main paths as humans, but also with our four-legged friends, because they're very, very vulnerable to disturbance because they're in amongst the heather on the ground. They're quite easily disturbed and flushed. So if your dog or you walk through the heather and you happen upon one, then the females will fly off to cause a distraction, and they'll leave the eggs, and if they're left for too long, then the eggs will get cold, and then they won't produce any young. So we need to try and help these birds as much as possible. As we're all aware, the State of Nature report is not good news. The UK is one of the most nature depleted countries in the world, so it's important that we can try and do our best to support these animals, and doing small things like sticking to the path is really easy to do and will really help them thrive.
So us sticking to the path and keeping our dogs and anything else we might be walking, obviously horses sometimes, if they can stick to the paths rather than running joyously through the heather and just sort of leaving that heather and those areas for the wildlife to share that habitat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the national park has got so many networks of footpaths and bridleways and places where you can explore and enjoy nature, but alongside, you know, designated spaces where we can do that, and then leave the slightly more sensitive areas to thrive.
Yeah, brilliant. And perhaps also coming to dogs, something about dog poo.
Absolutely. So as part of the project and across the national park, we have our Take the Lead campaign, which is all about responsible dog ownership. So alongside sticking to the paths and, if possible, keeping your dog on a lead, a huge battle that we face every day is the amount of dog waste that we find on sites like this. So our message is to pick it up and bin it, and if there isn't a bin, then please take it home with you and bin it in a designated area. So as well as just not being very pleasant generally, dog waste increases the nutrient content in the soils of our heaths, which then means that some of the more dominant species which take over grow really quickly, and it means that our heathland specialists, such as our heathers and our dwarf gores and all sorts of other little ground growing species, don't have the chance and the opportunity in the sunlight to grow, because they're kind of out-competed by more dominant species.
So again, it's that sort of entanglement and interconnectedness with the specialness of these sites. And
It might have been a nightjar. I think I heard a little contact call there. So as well as the churring, when they're in flight, they make this kind of coo-week, coo-week contact call, and that's them talking to each other.
Okay. And is it the males and the females that churr, or...?
It's just the males that churr,
Okay.
and both the males and females can make that contact call.
Okay.
But yeah, if we hear any churring, that would be the male. That's kind of their territorial, kind of, this is my space, attracting the females to their area.
Mm-hmm. Hoping they're not going to be too shy tonight. There's a little on the windy side, which they do prefer calmer nights, I think, don't they?
Yeah, but I'd be surprised if we don't hear some churring. So they'll fly up and they'll hunt at this time of night, catching moths and mosquitoes, which is great because I'm not a fan. They love me. And they've got these huge mouths which enable to... I think it's almost like a basking shark when they've got their mouths open. I think they can just capture so much. Considering the size of the bird, they've got a big jaw, and they've got these little whiskers either side of their jaw, which no one's entirely sure why, but scientists think that it's to help them kind of pick up movement, motion, vibrations in the air as they're flying. But it looks really cool.
Flying around with your mouth open.
Yeah.
Trying to get those flies in rather than spitting them out.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The nightjar are dependent on these invertebrates to eat, and there's been a bit of a crash in insect numbers, particularly nocturnal species. So I think, that's something that we want to promote is what you can do to help your nocturnal habitat.
Absolutely.
So supporting moths and beetles and other invertebrates so that the nightjar do have something to eat, and the bats and all the other nighttime creatures. And I think probably the really simplest thing that anyone can do is closing your curtains so you're not getting that light spill outdoors. So yeah, we'd really recommend that to support our nocturnal wildlife. And then there's all sorts of other things you can do as you get into it. You can think about your outdoor lighting, which I think I talked about with Dan Oakley in season 1. We talked about the 5 principles of outdoor lighting. And I always forget several of them, but I think the first one is, do you even need a light? Sort of thinking about that, thinking about making sure it's going in the right place, so shielding it so it's not going up into the air or out sideways. There's something about having a warmer light, warmer colour temperature, so you quite often see that on the side of bulb boxes. So you want something, I think it's less than 3,000 Kelvin, or even 2,200 Kelvin, I think is what they're talking about now. Keeping it below 500 lumens, so that should be plenty bright enough for any backyard or garden. And I told you I always forget one of them. So yeah, that's a mission for the people listening. You can go off and find out what that 5th one is that I've forgotten. Yeah, and that will help support the nocturnal creatures as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And planting nighttime blooming plants in your garden that the moths can benefit from, and other nocturnal creatures. Yeah, I was
talking to one of our colleagues today, and she was saying they'd planted a particular tree in their garden, which turned out to be really supporting their moths, and they've had bats have just,
fantastic.
So many bats in their garden now. So it just goes to show, you think about these little things you can do.
It can be a small change, putting some water in as well. That always helps kind of encourage insects and bats. So there's lots of small things you can do, which, if we all do them together, have a big impact.
Support our nocturnal wildlife, who may or may not be coming out.
They're not in the mood tonight.
Okay, I'm just standing here with Olivia, and we've just spotted a nightjar. Oh. Are we going to get any more, do you think? Oh. So there's the churring.
There's also the aeroplane, unhealthily.
Had a bit of wind. Oh, I think that one's a helicopter.
Yeah.
So still a bit of helicopter noise, but there's also a nightjar just flying around in the trees in front of us. Not sure how much we're going to be able to pick up. The joys of trying to record nature. Some geese in the background there.
Quite a way off, but you might just be able to pick it up.
Just about hear it, yeah. Oh, blackbird. Okay, well, we're just about coming to the end of our nightjar safari here. We definitely saw a couple flying around and there was some churring in the distance, so I'm hoping the audio has picked that up. But I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Olivia for coming out and showing us round Weaver's Down and talking to us all about the wonderful Heathlands and the birds that call it their home, especially the nightjar. So, Olivia, if people want to come out and experience the magic of the nightjar themselves, how might they be able to do that?
So we run a series of nightjar walks that people can book onto free of charge. They're usually listed on the South Downs National Park website. If you look up Heathlands Reunited and then events, you can find them. We're coming towards the end of the season here for nightjars, so it's mid-July currently, and they're a bit like swifts. They're one of the last to arrive on our heaths, end of April, beginning of May, depending on the weather, so usually more towards mid-May, and then they leave early August, so we'll be kind of in the last couple of weeks of being able to kind of hear them and see them before they make that epic journey back to southern sub-Saharan Africa. So we do these walks annually, so please do come along, check us out. If not, we run a whole variety of walks across the seasons on our heaths, so looking at bats, fungi, all sorts of spring wildflowers as well, kind of celebrating, because every season is so different. It's nice to be able to come out and explore the same place and discover how it changes over time and through the seasons. So please do come along. It's something that I think everyone should experience at least once.
There is something really magical, isn't there, about coming out just as the sun is going down and getting to experience that nocturnal wildlife. And like you say, it happens seasonally, so we have the nightjar in the summer at the moment, but there are so many other things to explore through all the different seasons. So it's the night after I had a chat with Olivia, and I'm out with the rest of the Heathlands Reunited team on another of their sites, on one of their fabulous night walks. This is Short Heath, and hopefully you're picking up that nightjar churring going on in the background. We've got bats flying overhead. It's a much calmer night tonight, no wind. And just some really nice churring going on. It's such a different sort of a noise. You have to wonder really what people did think of that. I mean, no wonder they got called strange names and folklore about them: goat suckers, fern owls, doorhawk. So yeah, would really encourage people to get out and embrace the darkness in the summer as well as the winter and explore some of our amazing nocturnal wildlife. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and perhaps learned something new. If you did, you can leave a comment or tag us on Instagram at SouthDownsNP. If you're listening on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, or on Spotify and Apple, consider giving us a 5-star rating to show others you enjoyed it. I will see all you wonderful listeners, or hear all you wonderful listeners, on our next episode. Thank you very much.